Thank you.
We'll call this meeting of the Craven County Board of Commissioners regular session for Monday, February the 20th, 2023 to order. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Hunt?
Here.
Commissioner Mark?
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Here.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Here.
Chairman Jones?
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, please let's stand together as our county attorney, Mr. Grady, will lead us in prayer. And then please remain standing after that for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God of heaven, we come before you today seeking wisdom and guidance in how we should lead. Our hearts are drawn to the prayer of David in the 25th Psalm, and I bring it to your ear once again. No one whose hope is in you will ever be put to shame, but they will be put to shame who are traitors without excuse. Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. There is no part of our path that is a surprise to you. There is no treachery that is beyond your sight. Share with our leaders your unmatched wisdom, and let their actions today bless the world. We ask this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We welcome each of you that are present this morning and those who are viewing online to this Board of Commissioners meeting, which is your meeting. Also this morning, we have several special guests with us who we'll introduce here in a little while, and we thank them for taking their time today to be with us. For those in attendance, we would ask that you would please silence your cell phones if you have them with you to not disrupt this meeting. We would appreciate that. Commissioners, you have before you your agenda packets. There is one item that I would ask that we would add to the agenda today. It would be a closed session at the end of the meeting to discuss personnel. It's 143-318-11A5 according to our county attorney. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I ask that we add that to the agenda. Are there any other items that you desire to add or to pull from today's agenda?
Make a motion to approve agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda with the addition? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item is the consent agenda. You have the minutes of the February 6, 2023 regular session, tax releases and refunds. You have a budget amendment from the Health Department for additional state funding, and then a donation budget amendment for the Sheriff's Office. Are there any items that you desire to pull from the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hear none. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. The next item is the Department of Transportation presentation. We are honored today to have with us Ms. Mary Jo Alco, who is our board member with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Mr. Jeff Cabanis, who is our division engineer, and I think he has also some other individuals with him, so we'll let you introduce them. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting us come present what's going on with the Department of Transportation. Also, other than board member Alcoke, I have our deputy division engineer, Mr. Jeremy Stroud, with us today. So at the end, we have questions. If they're easy questions, that's for Mary Jo. I'll take the medium one, and the hard ones go to Jeremy. So this morning, just wanted to briefly go through what's going on in Craven County, and I'd say before we start, in my 31 years with the department, I don't know of any county that's had as much construction going on and planned close together as Craven County has right now. I haven't done all the math yet, but it's upwards around $800 million at least that's coming to the county in the next several years. So we'll go ahead and start. That's the agenda, pretty much going through our kind of large projects, and then some smaller bridge projects, Jefferson's that's coming, and then one safety project here at the end we need to update on. So the first one we'll go to is the 43 connector. You've probably heard a lot about that. It's now moving forward. We're actually in right-of-way. We've got about 3/4 of the right-of-way already acquired. We've got almost all, excuse me, of the right-of-way needed for utilities. I think we're lacking one parcel, and that's important because as soon as we get that, we can start coordinating those utilities to start being moved ahead of the LET, which is coming in December of 2024. And if you're not familiar with that term, that's a fancy term we use for awarding the whole process of giving the contract, excuse me, over to a contractor. Okay, next slide. James City, I'm sure you're very aware of this project. This one we've started years ago. It's under contract. They're working out there, as you see, doing a lot of utility work, starting to work on doing some paving on the service roads. And so this summer, spring, summer, you should really start seeing a lot of work going on out there. Next slide. So we're about 33%. Utilities cost more than you would think, but yeah, so we're working on that and going through the right away. I think we've got everything that we need on that. Completion date is the end of 2024 calendar year, so towards going into that winter of next year, they should be finishing up. So they've got a long way to go in a short time. If you go to that website, or if you go to Google and just type in James City Project or the number, you'll come to our webpage, and that's a good way to look and see what we have planned. But there's also a button there that you can click on, and you can put your email address in or your cell phone, and you can get updates. So when we're going to push out traffic shifts or anything that's going to impact traffic, before we do those news releases, it'll come out just about simultaneously or maybe a little before. So if you want to keep up on something that may be coming, it's a great way to keep up. Okay, next slide. Havelock Bypass, full construction. We're working on that. Just slide. And that's Balfour Beatty. Working on that about 58% right now. We have a website on that that's dedicated. If you haven't, you can go through and see. We've flown it with drones ever so often. I think the last time was probably about 6 months ago, that you can actually see the drone footage. It's hard to see because it's on a new location. So you can see what we're doing on where it ties in the 70, but not so much on the other areas. But they've still got a few bridges to complete, and then they'll start finishing up the stone and pavement. They are scheduled to finish up close to next year this time, so spring of 24. Maple Cypress, that's a bridge we've been working on over the Noose, new bridge there, and we're almost finished with that. The new bridge is in place, traffic's on it. We're just taking the old bridge down right now. And good on this one, the good thing was the contractor that got it was very aggressive, and we're a year ahead of schedule on this project. The C part, and most time we have really good nicknames for projects, and this one we just couldn't come up with a good one. So this is the C project. It's in between the James City and the Havelock, and that'll be connecting that off up to interstate standards. So let's see, it's got 3 interchanges, about a little over 6.5 miles. Next slide. That was awarded to Balfour Beatty in January. So you've got the same contractor that's working on Havelock and James City, and then now the piece in between. So that's very attractive to us. We were glad that worked out because now they can make it all seamlessly. Sometimes you have 2 contractors where it kind of butts up. Sometimes they don't play nice together, but this way they can work together. And the way we're hoping that this project will dovetail right in behind Havelock and James City. So that's a good policy. What's coming in the future?
Jeff, can I ask you a question on that one?
Yes, sir.
So that's a design build, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's why, as they go through, you kind of put the boundaries out of where the road will go, and then the contractor and the engineering firm would then kind of put it in place.
Yes, sir. Anytime we start out with design, we don't usually, we always add a little bit of extra room because we're not sure how it could shift. And early on, since this was design build, not to get in the weeds, but we only get to about 25%, and that kind of tells you which way you're going, left or right. But later on, we start looking at the foundations and what that pavement structure is going to look like. And if the pavement comes up, then the width's got to change a little bit. So that's why we got a little extra there when we go out to the public and show that. So they're going to be dialing that in and bringing that in before they go into right-of-way, because right-of-way is very precise. We're not going to buy close to a foot or two. We're going to have it down to the actual endpoint accuracy on that on the right-of-way.
And it's fair to say from the top project to the end of this project, C, there's service road connecting basically entire way.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, yes, Jeff, and thank you for coming today. It's
ma'am.
nice to see you outside of the MPO meeting. I had two questions. One, for the C project here, I know it is approved. Is it funded?
Yes, ma'am.
It is fully funded with it. And going back on the Havelock area, there was discussion for a while, I know, about widening Main Street. Is that on hold
Main Street, which is,
in Havelock?
I think it's Miller Boulevard.
Miller Boulevard, I'm sorry.
it's a couple slides coming down.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
So 17, that'll be widening just like we did in Bridgeton, headed north. This will take it, it's two projects. It actually, the first one takes it up to the stoplight there at Arnold. The next one takes it a little bit further towards the Vanceboro bypass. It's going to get us about 1.5 miles or so just south of Vanceboro. So that's coming. You can see the right-of-way is supposed to start spring of 26 and letting in 28. Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
Yes, ma'am. So Miller Boulevard, Fontana, NC 101, that's coming. If you'll, you get the next slide, please. You see right away scheduled to start spring of 27, but that widens it, starting just to the south or west of Lake Road, and that'll take it all the way to the other side of town, basically past there's a park down there and just a little ways past that going out of town. So that's going to be a 4-lane divided with the center median. Takes it by the high school, the elementary school, but it's funded and $37 million, but that's coming. We were working on it, then it went on pause, but we'll be coming back, and to make the 27 right away, we're going to have to start into design in the next little bit. We had discussions, I think, last week with the city. Thanks. And then we got a small project, it's a roundabout. This is out here just, if the hospital is kind of up in the top left corner. Taco Bell is kind of right there to kind of tell you where we're at. That'll be changing that intersection, removing the signal. The good thing about this design is if you're not going to turn left, you just stay in the outside lane and going through. So we have kind of free-flowing lanes that kind of go around the roundabout. So if you need to turn left, you'll go into the roundabout base. If not, you'll just kind of stay on the outside of it. Okay. Well, go back one, and I'll tell the time frame on that, summer of 28. We were in right away when that project got paused several years ago.
But now that's not a little roundabout like we have at the end of this
No.
street. That is a great big, any large vehicle can go around it roundabout, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The design that we use is for tractor trailers, school buses, any type of emergency, fire truck, ambulance, anything will be able to go around that. We actually looked at that earlier, and the roundabout that's down here near the river actually fits inside the green area, so it's a lot bigger, much bigger. And then moving into kind of our bridge replacement program, you can see the maple cypress is up top. We've got several that are, the next one down is near Arnold, that's about 70% complete, and then we've got several more that are coming. The culvert on Adams Creek's under construction as well. That should be completed this summer. And then you'll see it's on, actually, Adams Creek Road is actually on a resurfacing contract as well. So that's what's coming on some smaller bridge replacements. And here's resurfacing. We've got some.
Can I stop you a minute?
Sir.
I want to go back. I thought we were going to hold questions till later, but I want to go back.
Okay.
Number one, you talked about Cypress Bridge. Is that going to be raised?
Maple Cypress?
Yeah.
No, sir. Well, no,
So we're going to still have the same flooding that we had before.
the road, yes, sir.
Yeah. You talked about a roundabout over a different area. 8 years ago, I wanted a roundabout, or before the roundabout, we discussed ways
Right.
of changing the system or the streets in that area because we had number of fatalities. And it came down to we couldn't do full stop signs, we couldn't do this. The next thing I know, we got full stop signs now. Where's the roundabout that was supposed to take the traffic off of that area?
It's the last slide on here, but I'll go ahead and tell you, we're supposed to go to Ward in April. That's where we're at. So it's-
Well, that's good news. 8 years is not bad.
If there's ever been a project that's had just about everything thrown at it, this little project has.
It certainly has, and we've held meetings on it, and it was supposed to be done 4 years ago, and it was held up for full stop signs, which we told we couldn't have full stop signs because it would cause too much trouble.
Right.
Now we got full stop signs, and I just want to see if we're going to get a roundabout.
Yes, sir, it's coming. So that's our resurfacing that's scheduled. You see some in yellow there. We've moved to this coming fiscal year, 24, for funding. And then the ones in blue, or I guess that's blue, those are actually already been let. So it's been awarded to a contractor, Barnhill. It's available in March. That's where our paving season starts. So, starting in March, it'll be available. We haven't heard exactly what their schedule is. Their indications right now is that they're planning on starting early. So that's good, because when we give a resurfacing contract, we have to give them a paving season and a half. So we're hoping they'll go ahead and get on that one. The one in green, you see that it's available this summer, so July on that one. And then the one that I wanted to make mention of, it's kind of pinkish red, that's what we call a full depth reclamation, or FDR, and that's a super duper resurfacing contract, basically. We actually go in and grind the existing asphalt and the dirt, inject concrete in it, and what it does is make a foundation where the roads never really had a foundation. So it's very involved. It's pretty impactful as road goes. We don't do many of these because of the expense. We did a contract last year in one other county, and we've learned some lessons on that one. So this one hopefully will flow a lot better than that. But once it's finished, it will be very, very good road for a long time.
You widening that road, River Road.
How much? How much, you know? Okay, about 2 feet either side. So it will be a little bit wider. Okay, and the next couple slides has got some maps, kind of where that area is. That's one of the contract that's going to be available this summer. And then the next one shows the ones that are available now. And the last one, as Commissioner Mark mentioned, roundabout at River Road in Nelson, and that one will be led in April. It'll have a detour, but it's a short detour on the Maple Cypress back on Nelson, I believe, and then comes back to River Road. So it's about 0.7 of a mile of a detour, but that'll allow them to get in and build it a little bit quicker. So that should be starting this summer up until December is the projected construction date on that one. That's all the
Okay,
information.
Jeff, we thank you. I know there might be some more questions. We'll start right down here. Commissioner Howard, you have anything?
No.
All right, Commissioner Mitchell, anything else? Commissioner Mark?
Other than I congratulate you for coming into Craven County.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hunt?
I don't have any questions. I want to just say that I appreciate the presentation and the website. They are very easy to navigate, so I like using them. Thank you.
Nice.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Booker.
Yeah, I have one. Ms. Alcock, you'll be very familiar with this one. All the construction on Bryce's Creek Road, all the new homes. Another development called Blue Water Rise, which is behind Taberna. Excuse me. I think is going to have about 400 homes. I spoke to Jeff already, so he's familiar with what I'm talking about. And I've gotten a number of, I'll use the word complaints, particularly with the 70 project, that people that are leaving those developments and going to, let's say, Cherry Point, which a lot of them do, and as Cherry Point ramps up, we're going to see more and more of that. County Line Road. The request from many, many people living in those areas is, can we not pave it? And I talked about this several years ago already. I understand the challenge because it goes through the forest, and that means that we don't have complete say on when and if it could even be paved. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it is becoming a bigger and bigger subject of, I'll say, contention and concern.
Thank you.
So it's not a question, it's just a statement. It'd be great if we could do something with that.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, first off, I want to say thank you and to our DOT board member also for spreading your projects around all of Craven County. I know there's a lot of money involved in everything that you do, but to be able to see a presentation like this that serves from the east to the west, the forgotten ends, definitely. I think that shows what DOT is trying to do, I think. Not saying it hadn't been done in the past, but I'm glad to see this presentation, especially some areas that I know Commissioner Mark and I have worried about for a number of years. Mary Jo, I would just, and I've already talked to Jeff about this, but I would just say it to you. You know, one of the concerns that we have in rural Craven County, especially now, is our unpaved roads. We've still got a number of them, and we know that the funding for that, in talking with our legislators, which we have one with us today, and thank you for being here. And I know she hears what we're saying today too, but that is a great concern that we still got a number of unpaved roads here, and the amount of money that's being allocated to those unpaved roads is minimum. I mean, hardly nothing. But yet we continue to build new roads, and don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not against progress, but we definitely would love to see more money appropriated if we could focus on these roads. Now, DOT's done a great job in dragging them. I commend them. They're doing excellent in that. But, you know, that is one concern that I know that I have as a rural representative, and I just, again, with our list of wishes and wants, that's one thing I would ask that you would please put in the back of your mind too. So,
thank you.
Ms. Alco, do you have anything you want to? If you don't have to. You got anything this morning? All right. Jeff, again, anything else for staff? You got anything? No. We thank you all so much for taking your time, for being a part of this today, and we look forward. We need to do this more regular, and we thank you for the presentation.
Sure. Thanks, Chairman. Anytime that y'all need us to come, just let us know, and we'll be happy to come.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
We're very honored today also for our next item to have with us one of our new representatives to the North Carolina General Assembly, and Representative Carnes. I hope I have said that. I didn't say it right.
No, sir, it's Cairns.
Cairns. Well, I apologize. A rural fella, I don't recognize all these new names. I'm mostly familiar with Smiths and Joneses and those names. But anyway, please come forward. We welcome you today, and thank you for being here.
Morning. I don't plan to take any of your time this morning, but I am grateful to be here. I am grateful to represent this district. As I introduce myself, to folks up at the legislature. I always assume that they're envious of me when I tell them about the area that I represent, and if they're not, then they're just ignorant, because this is a wonderful place, and I think you all would agree with me. So I'm here this morning because sadly I cannot be with you next month. I know you had invited me and Senator Perry and Representative Tyson to be with you, and I apologize for that. So I wanted to be here as soon as I could, and I will stay around after this meeting for as long as you would like to have me here and talk about anything you would like for me to hear, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate that. Thank you for your service. All right, Commissioners, item 4 on our agenda today is the presentation of the 2022 Annual Audit Report. We have with us Mr. Thompson, and we welcome you this morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all of you. You should have a copy of the presentation summary there with you, and hopefully it's going to be on the screen as well. If you'd be kind enough to turn over to page 1, couple things I need to read out. Next slide, if you will. Under significant audit findings there were no significant audit findings, but all the policies, estimates, and disclosures that the county is required to do, we were in agreement with and approved of. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit on page 2. No uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management. Management did provide us a representation letter dated November 28th. And we're unaware that management consulted with any outside accountants, auditors, etc. And again, no findings or issues. I do want to maybe back up and say this. The main reason you do hire us as an outside auditing firm is to issue an opinion on the financial statements as a whole. We did issue an unmodified report, which is a quote-unquote clean report. So there were no findings, etc. A couple years ago, the LGC basically said if you've been on the board for any length of time, you might have in the past gotten what's called a unit letter. They asked us to present any findings that you'd have to respond to in regards to a quote unit letter. There will be no unit letter. There is no unit letter. So all that is very good. If you'd love to look at some numbers on page 4, if you will. Top number there, again, kind of laying out format, if you will. I don't say these are all the key numbers in the audit report, but you'll go to another couple slides, I think. Anyway, you have a hard copy there in front of you, I think, on page 4. These are not all the key numbers in the audit report, but these are some of the numbers in the audit report. Total fund balance, $59,604,000. If you were to go back to 2018, you'd see that number at $37,110,000. The unavailable fund balance at $15,552,000. The available fund balance at $44,051,000. Restricted at $15,599,000, and then unassigned fund balance at $44 million. Total general fund expenditures is $124 million. You can see where that's risen from $102. Fund balance available is 35.38%, up from 28.75% a few years ago. Fund balance unassigned is 35.34%. And then revenues over and under expenses, if you will, profit or loss before transfers, etc. And the general fund is $17,321,000, and the water fund is a positive $168,321. Depreciation expense in the water fund is $1,707,000. Enterprise fund there, net position in cash. Total net investment in capital assets is $26,257,000. Unrestricted net position is $13,783,000, and then total net position is $40,041,000. Total cash is $13,790,000. And what I like to tell folks is, you know, in an enterprise fund, as it relates to governmental units, you're not really looking as much at how big your net position is as much as you're looking for cash flow, because you want to charge a fee that enables you to continue to provide service. And so you have a positive cash flow, and that's what you're really after, which means you're charging a fair price to customers, et cetera. The next line there, you see property tax rates for the 5 years, the collection percentage for the 5 years at 98.97 for the current year, and total property valuation and levy amounts there at the bottom of that page. And if you flip over to page 5, you see a breakdown of your general fund revenues and then a breakdown of your general fund expenditures. Government-wide net position as you get past the expenditures there at $153,093,000. You can see the growth in that from 18 at $96,847,000, and then the total net position increase for the current year at $21,105,000, and then you go back to $8.2 million in 2018. You can see on the bottom of that there's some notes where the powers that be keep changing some of the standards and what impact that may have had during the various years on the net position. On page 6, you see the analysis of fund balances with general fund, total fund balance in blue, available in red, and unassigned in green. On the bottom of that page, you see fund balance available and unassigned as a percentage of general fund expenditures. And then on page 7, you see the collection percentages with the statewide average, and then counties with general fund expenditures over $100 million.
Can I comment on that, sir? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir, sure.
I just for a note for commissioners on the graphs, you'll see a dip starting in 18 to 20, and just a reminder, that was some of the costs the county had to cover related to Hurricane Florence. We had to dive into fund balance to preload and get everything back like it was, knowing we needed to wait on insurance and FEMA, that it's not an instantaneous gratification when it comes to that fund, meaning we got to hold that expenditure from our fund balance till the time we're made whole. And it's one of the reasons, and I think when you guys look at a fund balance policy, you look at a little higher number than maybe if you were in a different part of the state, because as you can see with Florence, it can be a large number you got to hold. So that 35% is probably pretty average for what we really need. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Completely concur, too. Because FEMA, as you already have said, takes a significant amount of time sometimes to reimburse, while the expenditures going out the door are instant.
Yep.
So on page 7, again, collection percentages there. Page 8, this is a breakdown of your general fund revenue by percentage and a pie chart on the top. And the bottom bar chart shows the expenditures for 4 or 5 of those departments. I'm sorry, 6 of them. And the numbers above those are in millions. So you can see where ad valorem taxes in blue may have gone from 50 million up to 57 million. You can look at the various other categories there as well. And then on page 9, you see the same thing on expenditures, where you have the percentages on the top, and then on the bottom you see the various categories with might be 27 million for education back in 18 and 29 million in 22. So that would be what you're looking at overall. Again, what I would love for you to take away from this, unmodified report, no findings, and from an overall standpoint, in good shape financially. So that's what I'd love for you to take away from this. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have of me right now. I'm happy to answer any questions you got of me anytime. You're always welcome to give me a call. You call my office and I'm not there, tell them to give you my cell phone, and I'll get you an answer to your question.
All right, commissioners, you have any questions?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think that the staff, based on what your findings are, has done one heck of a job in keeping us in good shape.
Yes, sir. Completely concur.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Thompson, and I hate to go back to it, I know you guys represent and audit a lot of counties and cities in East North Carolina. What do you think's the right fund balance percentage being in the hurricane zone? I mean, we've always debated that here. Our policy's somewhere between 18 to 25%. I think Craig and I have talked over the years, it's probably somewhere 25 to 35%, if not a little higher. Do you have an opinion on that?
Not off the top, I don't, but I would concur that whatever, if you looked at the average, you probably need to add about 10% is what I would do. So if you got group weighted average, you probably need to add 10% to it, because once it hits, and you're right, we do quite a bit of audits of both towns and counties on the eastern side, and when it hits, it's a long wait. We've had people, it's almost 4 years before they got FEMA reimbursement completely. So it's being able to withstand it is a big deal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The only thing I can see here with these charts, and having gone through them before, there's been an increase in education, and there's been an increase in the police, sheriff's department, which, you know, in this day and age, I can see why it is, but it has been a big difference, considering that social service, the health department used to carry a good load of it.
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Mr. Thompson, in closing, I know some of the concerns that we've had in years past with the audit is because you also audit the airport. That was something that we have had findings on in the past, and some of us that served on the airport board, that was one of our desires for that to go away and be corrected, and it has been. I didn't see nothing in your audit to correct.
That's correct. We've got a couple things that one of the FAA grants wants us to go back and take a look at, so we're going to go back and do that.
Okay, all right. But we're thankful that that has been corrected, and I just want to commend our staff in the finance department for their hard work. We got a great team, and Jack and his department. I will say to our citizens here, you know, one of the goals of this Board of Commissioners and staff has done a great job in trying to adhere to what the desire of this board has been for a number of years, is that, number one, we keep our tax rate as low as possible, but yet to try to have a good savings. And our fund balance is the savings for this county. Because of that savings, we were able to buy the adjacent lot over here and didn't have to borrow a dime. But yet we still are going to, percentage-wise, be in good standing. And that's what we want to continue to do for the future. And so, Jack, I commend you on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. If there's nothing else, Mr. Thompson, we thank you for working with Craven County and for all your hard work, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Have a good day, sir. All right, departmental matters. The next one is the reevaluation 2023 update. Ms. Leslie Young. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Jones. Good morning, Vice Chairman Booker. Good morning. And good morning to the Craven County Commissioners. I was here before you 2 weeks ago to present the delinquent tax amount, and at that time I gave just a little sneak preview as to where we are with our revaluation. I asked that I could come back today to give you a very detailed. On February 6th, I presented some of the details, and I told you that at that time our average percentage increase was subject to change because our appraisers had not finalized yet. As of today, the appraisers have finalized their values. Our values are now considered certified. So there's two takeaways from my presentation this morning. First is our revaluation is solid. And secondly, our real estate market in Craven County is very strong. So let's jump right in and I'll show you why. Okay? All right, Steve, let's try the next slide.
Here we go.
Okay, you see a 42.03%. I'm going to explain to you what that number is, and I'm also going to explain to you what that number is not. Okay? Commissioner Howard, I believe that we spoke and touched on this just a little bit on February 6th, so I want to give more detail to you and make that clear. Okay? Back one. All right, let's start at the top. Countywide, all of Craven County, an average percentage increase in valuation. Tax year 2022, real property taxable valuation. This is last year's real estate only, taxable in valuation. That number is $8,041,167,514. That is a valuation for last year in real estate only, taxable. We're conducting our countywide revaluation. Cost tables have been adjusted, and now all properties are to be appraised at fair market value. So for tax year 2023, real property that is taxable. That valuation is $11,420,985,589. When I take the 11 billion figure minus the 8 billion figure, that difference is then divided by the 8 billion figure. That calculates to 42.03%. That's how we calculate to get the number. Now, what this number represents is an average. That means there's highs, lows, and all in between in the valuation, and it's just an indicator of what an average increase in the overall valuation is for Craven County for this revaluation. What I want to tell you this number is not. This number is not the percentage increase in value for all 60,000 parcels each individually in Craven County. It is not. There are parcels that are going to increase in value larger than 42.03%. There are going to be parcels that won't increase as much. Okay, this is an average, all right? When I calculated this number, immediately I wanted to know, well, where do we stand? And Chairman Jones, I believe one of your questions a couple of weeks ago touched on that. My reply to you was that we're in line with other counties, okay? Now, there is a very unofficial poll that was conducted by one of the counties in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, and this particular email sent out to the 26 counties in North Carolina that are having a countywide revaluation for this year. So, of course, we're one of them, so I received the email asking, what is your overall average percentage increase in value? In just a second, we're going to go to the next slide. But what I want you to see is, this is why I said we are in line. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, Steve.
Can I ask a question before we go to the next slide?
Okay.
You stated that there were parcels that had increased and parcels that stayed the same. Do we have any that decreased in value?
I will have to check into that, but I'm certain there are parcels that did not increase as much as 42.
Because I'm thinking of ones that may have been involved in the storms, storm damage, and different incidents that would cause it to decrease.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be glad to look into that. Very good question. Okay, let's take a look. 26 counties, 14 counties responded to this unofficial poll. What is your overall average increase for your countywide revaluation?
Wow.
You can see about in the middle, there's Craven, 42.03%. You'll also see there are a lot of 40s. This slide right here is a very good indicator as to why our revaluation is solid. Because not only are we in the 40s, we're on a very conservative 40. Nothing extravagant, nothing drastic. We're right in line. Okay. Are there any questions about this slide before we move on?
Leslie, I would ask, I don't mean to interrupt whoever was speaking, will you have this on your website somewhere under the tax office?
I can. I just want to be very clear that this is very unofficial.
Understand. But I think it's important that the citizens of this county be able to see that. Because as we said, there's folks going to be very concerned, and I understand that. I'm concerned. But I think this, and I commend your office for doing this.
Presently. So if you look at what it was valued at, 162, and now it's 297, they got 297, that's where your discrepancies are going to come in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes, sir. And we're prepared. I want to show you a couple of slides there.
I had a question too.
Yes, sir.
Leslie, is it possible to share this presentation with us?
That's what I was going to ask at the end of the presentation. I want to take you through, and with your permission, I'll be glad to put this entire presentation on our website. Okay?
Yes. Great
Now,
question. Thank you.
Before I go to the next slide. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I noted that in looking at this, most of these properties were had reval later than we have, and they have more. They've gone up more. So ours is to me, it seems very conservative compared to what I'm looking at with other counties.
That's right. That's my passion for real estate, because real estate changes so independently for a number of factors. Whereas you see where Mecklenburg, of course, and then there's still,
That's the only one county that
Make a lot of money.
is longer than
and
ours.
I'll take this time, because I wanted to say this in this presentation, I want to commend the commissioners once more for recognizing that Craven County, in terms of parcel count, is ranked 29th in the largest in the state. This slide right here should show you why it's so important to implement a 4-year revaluation cycle. This right here should show you why we should not wait 7 years. Now, we had no control, all right? But this right here shows why it's important to stay on top of that fair market value. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Smith, on your point, I think and I've done very little analysis other than looking at the slide before today, but when you see the percentage increases higher, it's the demand in that particular real estate market that may drive it more than some of the areas. So when you look at an Alamance, you look at a Mecklenburg, even Catawba, you've got some real challenges with housing stock, affordability. I mean, things that get into a little bit different scenario than we have. But I can't find a county on here that's exactly like us. But when we do some of our budget analysis against other counties, Henderson, population-wise, it is kind of a bedroom community, Asheville a little bit, but that's probably the closest one I can find on the list to us. Alamance, bigger, in that triangle area now, so they got some other factors. And of course, Mecklenburg's the largest county, second largest county in the state. So,
Before I move on to the next slide, if you remember 2 weeks ago, I wanted to come before you because I like for the right hand to know what the left hand is doing. Okay? Now, this time next week, notices are going to mail. Okay, so what I want to communicate with you this morning. But again, this is my 4th countywide revaluation in my career. It is going to be very typical for phone calls and walk-ins from property owners to say, I got this in the mail, what is it? As much hard work as we've put toward this, there are still going to be plenty of folks who don't know. A lot of reaction is, well, I have this new value, I can't afford the taxes. That's when we have to have a conversation, a very small conversation about tax rate. We also get into, well, I don't know if I should appeal because I don't know what my taxes will be. We have that conversation. I want to show you this next slide because I want you and all the folks in the room to understand what the tax department has to say about a tax rate. Because again, the tax department does not oversee a tax rate. Steve, if you'll show the next slide. At the top, you'll see the verbiage that came directly from my town meeting. Remember, we had the 8 town meetings in October and November. And I put together everything that is completely public information. The first column going down is the last 3 revaluations that Craven County has had. The next column, the middle column, is the tax rate of Craven County over the last 3 revaluations each before the revaluation was implemented. What was the tax rate? And then the last column is, you can see how tax rates were adjusted of the revaluation year. That is simply all that the tax department can help educate the public to say, look, we don't know, because you'll see in the verbiage at the top that the tax rates won't be set until late spring. But we can show you the history of a tax rate, and it's public knowledge. That will be the very most that the tax department will be able to speak on a tax rate. But I wanted you to know what the tax department will say about that, and it'll be very short, to the point. Okay. All right, let's get a little specific. And the next 2 slides, this is the revaluation notice. This is the front page. I want to go ahead and go to the back page because in these 2 slides, I want to show you 3 improvements that we're making to this revaluation. You'll see at the very top, Craven County Tax Department. And what I've done, I added this. It is our address, but it is also all 3 telephone lines to our tax department as a whole. This is the tax collection, this is the personal property, and the real estate. That means we have 21 telephone lines readily available to take calls. I've already had it inspected by our IT department. They are all fully functioning and ready to go. I have a second appointment made with IT to come back on Monday the 27th because I want to be reassured. Our telephone lines will be extremely busy, certainly the first 2 weeks, if not the entire month of March. But I wanted the citizens to not call directly just to our real estate division. We only have 8 lines. I have trained the staff for personal property and tax collection They can assist the caller in reading the revaluation notice, along with reading their property card. And then at that point, it'll be up to the caller to decide if they choose to submit an appeal. But we're ready to handle the calls. That's the first improvement. The second change you'll see is in the second yellow block over to the right. Please submit your appeal by one of the following. Line number 1, online. Craven County has not had the ability to submit an appeal online until this one. So again, I want to thank you for your support in upgrading our software system, because this now can afford for the property owner to submit an appeal online. That's huge.
That is good.
That's huge.
Okay? So thank you for your support in upgrading our software system. This too will act just as it does with a personal property listing. We have the capability to submit personal property listings each January online. Online, I'll comment here. On the front page of our website, the tax administration page, there will be 3 links. One of the links will be to submit your appeal online, click here. It'll be on the front page. We want to make it as convenient as we can for the appellant, for the property owner. Before I jump to the front page, are there any questions about these 2 items? Okay. All right, Steve, let's go to the front page, and forgive me if I get a little passionate. I could not be more excited to tell you about this feature. Steve, this is where we're going to need to go to the GIS website. I had a meeting with the appraisers, or I was part of a meeting with the appraisers a few months ago, and I shared some of my experiences in my former revaluations. And I had mentioned that one of the things that I found was helpful, it didn't revolutionize the revaluation process, but it was very helpful, that as an appraiser, when an appellant walked in, a property owner, and I could produce the 6 most comparable sales to that subject property. And I liked that. It allowed for myself as an appraiser and the property owner to immediately have an educated conversation, because now they can see the sales that I actually used. So I get really excited when we already have the resources. This didn't cost the county any money, and we did much with what we were given. So I can't wait to show you what you can do. So on Wednesday afternoon, property owners are going to get home from work. They're going to see their revaluation notice in the mailbox. And there's going to be a particular property owner, Mr. Jack Vite, who's going to see our instructions that he can go and see what the property sales were used to compare to his property as to how the appraiser determined the value. And those instructions are going to direct him to the GIS website. He'll enter his name, and then he'll search, and he'll pull up his property there. Now, you'll see it's highlighted in yellow. And then if you see over on the top right, there are several tabs, 6 tabs there. That second tab is called Sales Info. That's very important, Sales Info. But the appraisers took my experience and took it to the next level. I'm so proud of our real estate appraisers. They hit it out of the ballpark with this. They then went to our GIS, Lou and Bryce, and they created this feature. If you look down at the bottom left where it says print sales, instantaneously you can see Jack's Vite's subject property in red, the last time that it's sold over to the right, and now you will have the list of all the 2022 sales that were used for that subject property. Now, immediately, the appraiser and the property owner can have an immediate conversation, educated conversation. It is a tremendous bridge to bring the 2 together. Because remember, when a property owner needs to appeal their property, the burden of proof is on them to provide why the assessor is wrong. This immediately gives any property owner a starting place. Because oftentimes property owners, they feel lost. They're not an appraiser, they're not a realtor, but now they can look at their 3 sales in the neighborhood here, look at them, and now they can have a good educated comparison to their subject property. There's one more great feature to this. Now, it's not limited to 3. Okay, there may be some properties, maybe a little more rural, that may not have quite as many as 3. There are some populous, I've seen a list of more than a dozen, but it's the 2022 arm's length transaction sales. If you have commercial property, keep in mind, this list may not be the most accurate. It may give you one or two, but residential properties certainly. Okay? This is one more feature that when I tell you our revaluation is solid, we are very ready, very prepared to assist the citizens. One more feature I want to show. Steve, if you'll go back to where all the tabs are, and on the bottom right it says open the map of the sales. So not only does we show what the 3 sales are in a list, now we can see it on the map highlighted. Mr. Vite's subject property is highlighted in blue, and then you can see the 3 parcels highlighted in yellow that gives the sale date and the actual sale. This is tremendous for our revaluation in education and communicating with our citizens. And I am very, very proud of our appraisal staff and our GIS. Tremendous.
This is great.
And again, didn't cost the county a penny. We took the resources we had and did much with what we're given.
Looks like I'm in for a bad time here.
You are in for a bad time. So, again, I'm a little passionate, a little excited about it, but this is huge, okay? Very, very big improvement.
Glad to see it, but not me.
Are there any questions before I move on?
Congratulations.
Just fantastic.
It is.
Great job.
It is.
good.
And kudos to our appraisers, Bryce McCard and Lou Valenti in GIS. They did a fantastic job. All right, so I think I've shown you some good information as to why our revaluation is solid. The other takeaway I wanted you to have is that the real estate market in Craven County is strong. We touched on this at the last meeting, Chairman Jones, and I was hesitant to answer, and I just wanted to show you in numbers, okay? So
Could I stop you just a minute?
Yes, sir.
Our representative has a question. We want to recognize her.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder, we're looking at 22 sales, and now what we're seeing with interest rates and the way the market's working, is there no fear that what we've seen at the height of valuation, that we're doing it at the height? Does that make sense?
Your question is the perfect segue to my last slide, my next slide. I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, ma'am. All right, let's go to the next slide, which is the last slide. There are 3 things I want to point out to this. Again, let's start at the top. This information comes directly from Neuse River Region Association of Realtors multiple listing service. This is not a news media article. This is not a blog or opinion. This is the warehouse of what our local realtors use for their listings. We are an affiliate member of our local MLS. I track this every month. Chairman Jones, my apologies for the last time, but this is why I didn't want to answer fully when I told you that I have no indicator of a downward turn. Okay, this is why. I want to point out a few things. Let's start first. Let me identify the columns for you. This is over the last month, the last 12 months. So the first column going down is the month of the year. The second column, the average sales price of 2021, going all the way down for each month. Then we take the average sales price of 2022. What has the average sales price done in 1 year in Craven County? So then I wanted to calculate, well, what is that percentage increase in value? And then the last column is what is the average DOM, days on market. That is a tremendous indicator as to what our economy is actually doing. I have approximately 15 years of serving in county government in some shape, form, or fashion as an assessor. I have about 10 years experience in selling real estate. Days on market is tremendous. 1 day to 90 days, days on market is considered excellent, an excellent market. 91 to 120 days is a very good market. Anywhere from 121, 122, you get closer to the 180. We're stretching it out, and now we're considered good. The closer you get to 180 days of days on market, that's when we really need to start paying attention. Okay? That's when we'll see something of a downward turn. If you look at the column, one of the first 3 things I want to point out to this If you look at the column of days on market in the last year, the longest days on market we've had is 45. That was last month. We are still in the top half of an excellent category. We still have not even finished, gotten even to the bottom half of an excellent category. Our days on market are fantastic. The second thing I wanted to point out, remember when we were conducting town meetings the month of October and the month of November, and we had questions just like yours, Representative, very concerned about a downward turn. The market's turning, the market's getting worse. Look at what our valuation increase was for October and November. 2 of the top 3 highest valuation percentages was the 2 months that we were given town meetings and we were being told that the market is turning. It wasn't, not in Craven County, strong. And last month we're at 14.81. We're still good. And then the last thing that I want to comment on for this page, and will be the last thing that I comment about my presentation, I want you to look at the percentage increase column for the last 12 months. It's good, steady, and it's solid. Nothing drastic, nothing flashy, very steady. If we go back to 2008 recession, you look at the economies that had a slow, steady, stable market, and how they responded to the recession was stable and steady. Nothing flashy, nothing drastic. Did it make the downward turn? This right here, as a citizen of Craven County, makes me very, very excited about the future of Craven County. We're strong, we're solid, and we're steady. Okay? And again, I want to remind you that when you are in conversation, this comes directly from our MLS. There's no agenda behind the reporting. Okay? These are just straight numbers as to why we're in line and we're strong. Okay? This concludes my presentation. Again, I was going to thank you for the implementing the 4-year cycle. You can see why that's now so important. And also for upgrading our software system, because you see some of the features now we're able to provide. Commissioners, it's been my pleasure with this. If you would like for the entire presentation to be on my website, I'll be glad to do that.
Good idea.
Doing a lot of updating on the website between now and Friday in preparation for Monday.
Yes, please.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments?
Any questions from the commissioners? The only other thing that I would like for you to just briefly to comment on, and during our community meetings that we had, this was addressed. But because we did not have the participation there that, we had hoped at one time. So let's say in the next year, the economy collapses.
Sure.
Per state law, if you would go over, if it falls to a certain percentage, then we are required by state law to have another revaluation. Do you mind? I caught you off hand there, but if you don't mind.
Be glad to share. North Carolina Machinery Act, these are the statutes that I am charged to uphold. North Carolina General Statute 105-286. The very first statute, letter A, that is the statute that says we are to conduct a countywide revaluation at least once every 8 years. Okay, that's why we're doing what we're doing. Now the commissioners, we are allowed by statute if we want to implement sooner, which we do, and we are, okay? The very next, we don't even get to letter B. Under subsection A of mandating, item number 2. So we're still under subsection A. Number 1, it lists the counties in North Carolina, and then it goes right into number 2. Mandatory advancement. A county whose population is 75,000 or greater, that's Craven County, to the most recent annual population estimates certified to the Secretary by the State Budget Officer must conduct a reappraisal of real property when the county's sale assessment ratio determined is less than 85% or greater than 115%. A reappraisal required under this subdivision must become effective no later than January 1 of the earlier of the following years. The 3rd year following the year of the county received the notice, or the 8th year following the county's last reappraisal. Now, when it comes to statute, yes, I know my statutes, but Ari, I'm going to put you on the spot as well. What this means in layman's terms, the county has a property listed, a house on the property, the appraised value is $100,000 that we have for the countywide revaluation. The market turns, it goes south, placed on the market, sells for $65,000 in the open market. But the county has it appraised for $100,000. When we get an accumulative effect and our overall sales ratio falls below 85%, Department of Revenue will mail a letter to me and says, you're below 85%, Craven County, you must conduct a reappraisal. I got that letter this year. Got that letter in 2022. We are below our 85%. We are under a mandate to reappraise the county. And I contacted DOR and I said, we're a step ahead of you. We have our 2023 countywide revaluation scheduled. Okay, so we're there.
That's not for one property, that's more than one.
That's the entire county. I have to conduct, when the overall county sales ratio falls below 85%, then we have to reappraise the county. Okay, but there's a couple of things that have to happen with that, Chairman. First of all, the market has to turn, the market has to capture it, and then our sales ratio has to fall below that. I will not have where we are yet with our sales ratio study until about 3 more weeks, and I'll know where we are in that 85 to 115% range, okay? Because by April 15th, we have to turn in our sales ratio to Department of Revenue. I will have that number real soon.
Okay,
I've
thank you.
got an indicator, but I'm not willing to share that just yet.
Any other questions?
I just had a
Commissioner Howard.
comment. Ms. Young, thank you for this presentation. And as I continue to remind my residents, people that I represent, is that, this is obviously we adjust our tax rate in response to these increases, and you gave the history of that, and that'll be a nice tool for them to look at, and, as close to revenue neutral as we can get. And the online services that you guys are offering, I think that's really neat, and it'll be something I'll be referring people to at our next town hall. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
All right, any other comments, questions? Not, thank you, Ms. Young. We appreciate you being here again today.
Thank you.
All right, next item is item 6, social services. We have with us Mr. Jeffrey Merritt, our social services director. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager.
Can't buy something else.
We bring before you a budget amendment today requesting additional funds for our foster care 4B line. We have submitted a pretty detailed explanation as to the reason for those funds. I'll be happy to go over some of those highlights if you wish to, or if you would like to go ahead and ask questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
All right, any questions for Mr. Merritt and his request for the budget amendment in the amount of $350,000?
I move that we approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment in the amount of $350,000. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to ask one question. I went through these figures. What was going back, let's say 3-4 years ago, what was the amount of money that we were paying total for foster care?
I don't have those with me right now, Commissioner Mark, but it has significantly gone up during those years. But I can get you those figures, and I can let you know what we budgeted and what
Well, it's going up a lot. That's why I was asking you.
Mr. Mark, if I could, we were about half of where we are now, and that's not counting this budget
That's what I
amendment.
figured, about 50%.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can get you those numbers. I'll go back to.
No, you don't need to. That pretty much gives me an idea. I thought it was going at a rate of about 50%, which that's a lot of money for foster care.
It is, and there's been some things that have happened since then, Commissioner Mark. We've seen providers, especially those at the therapeutic level, they're really able to charge, higher amounts because of, one, is the General Assembly and with inflation increased those amounts in the last budget, but also we're seeing, those with higher needs and less placement, so, they're able to charge more because of supply and demand. And we've had some children that are very young that have some pretty severe behaviors, and as we've tried to outline here,
there's been clinical recommendations that we have to try to get those placements, and they can be as high as hundreds of dollars a day. I've talked with other directors, and I've spoken to some senators that were talking about these issues in regards with cost and children and trying to stabilize them. There's some people that are paying $40,000 a month for some children in placements that are outside of the state. So these costs are, in Craven County's costs are significant. One child. Yeah.
This is a lot has to do with mental illness,
right,
and opioid and alcohol, and that's where the problems are coming in.
Yes, as you see in our report, as of January, about half of our children are in care due to our two most significant issues where families come into the child welfare system, mental health and substance abuse, right, with 42% of those with has opioid involvement. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. County Manager?
Yeah, Jeff, I think you hit on a lot of the things I was going to say. I mean, the foster program in totality has increased, and it doesn't only have a demand on the budget, but Jeff, I would appreciate you saying a little bit about the staffing levels. Jeff and I meet at least once a month, sometimes twice, to talk about the challenges, whether it's foster children or guardianship or whatever, but he's got folks out on the road every day all across this state, and sometimes out of state.
Right.
And it's becoming a burden. I think we're at a point now where every year we're adding staff to keep up with this, and it's still not enough. So Jeff, I'm not gonna steal your thunder.
Oh well, thank you for that. You'll see, as budget comes along, we provided some data for that as well. In this particular program in foster care, we're seeing a real challenge in regards to we have a 40-hour work week. At the end of January, we had 125 children in care, and of those 125 in care, only 50 were located in Craven County. So that's 42% of the children in care, so 58% of them were actually outside of the county. So you talk about a child who is outside of the county and an emergency comes up or we have to go do a visitation, and this will be all in our budget justifications. That worker, just the time in the car, we did with one worker, that's 28% of their time just in the car driving if they were to go to children on their caseload. That's not doing any work. That's not on the phone. That's not for documentation. That's not supervising visitation. That's not doing any mandated meetings. That's not filling out the necessary paperwork. That's not, so, that's over a quarter of their time where they're just in the car. This is really becoming a program not only in Craven County but across the state, where maybe the only one where you're supposed to be serving the citizens in your county, yet the majority of them are located outside of your county. Now, many of them are in Eastern North Carolina, but we do have one in South Carolina right now. And we do have some children that are located out of the state. But those children are actually we have to go there once every 3 months. So we have to get a social worker to fly on the plane, go there, do the visit, and typically they fly back the next day. But those children are with relative placements that we found, and we've gone through our state office that works with other states to try to move them towards permanence, most likely adoption. But, it is becoming a much more of a burden, when it comes with the travel time and all the other demands there. Our state Department of Health and Human Resources is looking at another evaluation of what those caseload standards are. People say, there's only 15 in foster care and 10 in assessments and 10 in in-home. Mm-hmm. But when we're looking at the amount of time of what's taking to do the job, the administrative burden, we're seeing those demands and trying to meet our families' needs too, because it's hard for us to tell our families, you've only got to come in here from 8 to 5. We may have families that are trying to work to get their children back. They're working in a job where they can't miss a certain number of days, and if they do, they're going to lose their job, and that's not what we want to do. Also, foster parents, they may be working. It may be hard for them to miss their jobs and asking them to come in 8 to 5, so we do meetings after 5, 6, and 7. We do visitations after that. So we're really seeing this program and our other child welfare programs and adult services expand much more out of that regular 40-hour work week. In addition, we have a lot of individuals who have their own families too. And, I was just telling Representative Kingers about soccer practice tonight with my children, and those meetings go to where people are giving up their times with their families, and that balance is, people in this profession know there's going to be a lot of give and take, and most of the time it's more give away from their families to the families they serve, but that's really becoming a very much disproportionate, more so than it has been in the past.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes, I was not aware, Mr. Merritt, before I came into a county elected office, that county government also assumes responsibility for adults who need supervisory care. So we have foster children, and I will say foster adults, for whatever reason. The burden on your social workers and therapists is huge from the minors. How many adults do you have under supervisory care now as well?
I believe at the end of January, that number off the top of my head was about 78. And I think that's gone down a little bit. We have had some, we have some older individuals there, and we also have individuals with some severe health needs, and we had some pass away. So we're hanging right around 80 there, Commissioner Mitchell, is an average number.
So in addition to the 125 children in foster care, then you have about 80 adults who are also under supervisory care.
Correct. That number is actually increasing much faster than our foster care numbers are. We're seeing a lot of more, and as you see in my reports, we're seeing that population used to be individuals who maybe had gone into cognitive decline. They did not have appropriate individuals for care for them or anyone there, and we would come in and we're really able to stabilize them, get them the appropriate care that they needed, and we would continue to go visit them and make sure their medical needs were being met, see them in facilities, make sure there wasn't anything else happening. Now we're getting much more younger adults. We're getting younger adults where substance abuse and mental illness, we have those adults are all over the state as well. Our staff are having to travel. We have one in Wilson right now who was in the hospital for almost 3 weeks and is facing criminal charges. We can't find a placement for him. You see the individual in this last report. I'm going to be talking to the hospital today at 11. Been in Wake Med since I think of June of 2022, maybe before that. But that's in the report. We're going to be talking and trying to see what we can do there to find that individual a long-term placement, because what we see, there's no one that will take him. This hospital says they tried to talk to the state, so I'm going to try to get a letter and see what I can do and push someone at DHHS to be able to get that person a long-term placement that they need, because they're assaulting people. I think this individual, took a tray and assaulted staff at assisted living. There's no one that, one is really equipped to handle that individual, except very few specific places when we're trying to work with Trillium on that as well.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the 40-hour week has become a 24-hour day job for many of your staff members.
We do. You're right, and I tell people that, there's some, I equate, the work that we do kind of similar, just never apples to apples. But if we're managing individuals and managing their care and responding to crises, you look at the jail, I think Sheriff Hughes does that in the jail with his individuals. It's a more controlled environment. The emergency room is maybe more of an adequate approach. You have individuals coming to them, with crisis, and the staffing level is about first, second, third shift. I know that's a long ways out, but, we are seeing our on-call utilized more, because, they're having to go out and try to see individuals that maybe the worker during the regular week couldn't catch because they had so many other things to do and they couldn't go as much. So trying to maintain those contacts as well.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hunt.
As we're knocking on 80 individuals in adult care that Craven County is responsible for, out of the other 100 counties, do the other counties also take care of as many adults?
Well, that depends on what county, Commissioner Hunt. That is a mandated program, so everyone is required to provide that guardianship program for individuals who are adults and incompetent. There's no one else to step in as a guardian. It would depend on what county you would look at. They may have a higher percentage of what you look at population versus the amount of people that we have. It just depends. So they do run that program, but for what I've talked to other directors is that their numbers are continuing to go up as well in the guardianship program. So.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget amendment in the amount of $350,000. Here, no further discussion. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker,
Yes.
Chairman Jones.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
And Commissioner Jones, I will say, we do get some reimbursement on this fund, so half of it the county would get back in reimbursement at minimum.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Next item is Sheriff Hughes. He has 2 items this morning. Welcome, sir. Appreciate you waiting.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair and Vice Chair. Today, I believe we are asking that y'all approve a budget amendment for our scanning device that will go into our jail.
Okay.
I've asked my chief jailer, Chad Smith, since he has been at the forefront of this, is familiar with the technology, and what we're looking to accomplish with this technology.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Allowing me to speak.
Mr. Chad, may I comment before you get started?
Yes.
Commissioners, you're not approving a budget amendment because this is already budget. You're approving the acceptance of the bid, of the approval of the contract.
We had already approved.
It's in your
the other,
budget, yes, sir. Is that correct? Correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
We're just asking for approval of the contract. Finish up. The purpose of our body scanner is to scan individuals that are coming into the facility as an arrestee. Make sure, one, they don't have any contraband on them. They may have swallowed something that we're able to see and get a quick response on that. Takes about 3 seconds. So it'll be
Okay.
a great asset for us.
All right, any questions before we take the motion? Hear no questions. Do I have the motion to approve the
So moved.
body scanner purchase contract? We have the motion. Do I have a second? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. All right, and then the second item, Sheriff, is the award of firearms to retirees.
We have a number of employees that have retired, and they are, by county policy, I believe general statute, allowed to get their service weapon that they were utilizing when they retired. So whenever this happens, I come before you and ask that y'all will allow this county asset to be turned over to them. And typically, they will purchase it for $1, Chair.
Okay. What's the desire of the board?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to award the firearms to retirees. You have there listed in your agenda packets those who will receive it. Any further discussion on the motion? Hear none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Sheriff Hughes, again, we thank you for being here. You have anything this morning you want to share with us?
Nothing today, Chairman.
All right, thank you again, appreciate what you do. Thank you, Chad, for being here, Captain, we appreciate it. Item 8 is facilities, Mr. Gene Hodges.
Morning, Board. Thank you for having me this morning. So to start off, in July of 2022, the Board of Commissioners directed staff to continue working with design team at Oakley Collier Architects to develop an expansion project for the Department of Social Services building located at 2818 News Boulevard. Artist rendering is included there on the screen for everyone to see. The intention is to utilize funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, for this much-needed project. Using the guidance for ARPA funding that was provided at the time, design work commenced with the intent of a traditional design, bid, build project. Subsequently, additional guidance was provided by the U.S. Department of Treasury and the UNC School of Government that provided additional clarification of the use of ARPA funds that allows counties to use additional procurement methods for capital projects. In consultation with our design team and staff's experience with the emergency services building project, the old jail, it was decided that construction manager at risk, CM@R, would be a better delivery method for this DSS expansion project. Construction manager at risk is a collaborative process where the county, OCA, the design team, and the constructor will work throughout the design and construction phases to identify efficiencies early in the project to avoid cost overruns and schedule delays. The design and construction teams work with the county to develop a guaranteed maximum price. You'll also hear us call it a GMP. And the project is developed and scoped mindful of this price. The result is a project that's delivered on a fast-track schedule with little to no change orders. To move forward, the Board of Commissioners will be requested to approve the resolution, which was attached, to authorize the use of the construction manager at risk methodology for the addition and renovation work at the facility. With the board's indulgence, I would like to cover the 4 points, because essentially the board has to have a finding of facts that this is the correct delivery method for this. And there's 4 elements that we added in the resolution, and I'd like to read those. Whereas the project has a finite budget of $10 million based upon the county's prior allocation of American Rescue Plan Act revenue replacement formula funding, and in turn, the construction manager at risk delivery method as described in North Carolina General Statute 143-128.1 provides the ability for the county, its design team, and a contractor to collaborate at an early stage to develop a guaranteed maximum price within the allocated budget for the project. Whereas additionally, early collaboration allows for value management at the onset of the project, so all costs and savings are factored into the GMP. And whereas the ongoing global and national supply chain challenges, construction manager at risk delivery allows for the flexibility of alternative construction methods and materials to mitigate supply chain challenges. And whereas the extensive pre-qualification process for subcontractors and suppliers that is part of CM&R delivery is instrumental in bringing quality vendors to the project, which will mitigate costs caused by current economic and other uncertainties in the economy and the construction industry. So at this time, if the board so desires, I would request that we pass the resolution authorizing construction manager at risk for the delivery of this project.
All right, Commissioners, are there any questions before we entertain the motion that you have?
What is the total cost to the county?
Well, right now, the plan is to program $10 million of ARP money. So at this point, it's money that we got from the federal government. It's been used for revenue replacement through financial methods. And so now it's essentially $10 million of money that we didn't have. Okay. So it's coming directly from the feds.
So it's
it freed up money in the general fund that allows us to use.
So it's a minimal amount of money for the county. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Hear none, do we have the motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution authorizing the use of construction manager at-risk methodology for addition and renovation work for the DSS building. Hear no further discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, item B.
So item B, so again, in July 2022, the Board of Commissioners directed staff to continue working with the design team to develop this expansion project. A request for qualifications, RFQ for construction manager at risk, was issued on December 12, 2022. A site visit was held on January 6, 2023, and responses were received on January 18, 2023. We received 9 responses to the RFQ, and after responses were rated by the review panel, interviews were conducted with the top 4 firms that responded. After the interviews, the panel recommends that Barnhill Contracting Company of Rocky Mount, North Carolina be selected as the construction manager at risk for this project. The following documents show the rating sheets for the RFQ responses and the rating sheet for the interviews. Barnhill's knowledge and experience with large projects similar to this one and their proven track record of success with construction manager at risk projects put them in the best position to collaborate with Craven County to develop and execute this project. Next steps will be negotiating a fee and terms of the contract with the selected firm.
All right, any questions?
So moved.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second discussion. Commissioner Howard.
My question is, how many local contractors are the bidding process, if any?
We had, because of the nature of construction manager at risk, there's usually a larger horsepower that a lot of these firms have to have. But of the ones that, that actually submitted bids, or the ones that submitted RFQs, I know that we've got 4 or 5 of them are all east of 95. And actually Barnhill's, their headquarters is in Rocky Mount. So, as local as east of 95, I think is about as best as you can get for a project of this size and scope and what we're asking them to do.
All right, additional questions?
Only to say that Barnhill in recent buildings that we have done and roads that we have done have been more than great in handling it and price-wise the best.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
Gene, I would note that Barnhill does have a local presence here in Craven County. It's not their main office.
Yes,
in another sector, and then the owner has some property here as well. So while they might not be a resident, they are a taxpayer in our county.
All right, we have a motion and a second to select Barnhill Contracting Company as the construction manager for the DSS expansion renovation project. Then also we have authorization for staff to execute all the necessary agreements. We have the motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
All right, thank you, Board.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Commissioners, item 9 is the appointments. We have there before you the pending appointments. You see there all the committees, boards that there is need of individuals to serve. Do we have any nominations today? Hearing none, we will move to current.
I have one. Do I need to wait till next month?
Probably.
Okay.
Clayton needs to look
Yeah.
at it.
Okay.
I'll wait.
All right, so we'll move that to next month. All right, under current, the first one you have there is the Adult Care Home Advisory Committee. You have Ms. Carmel George, who seeks reappointment. What's the desire of the board?
I make the motion.
Okay, Vice Chair has made that nomination. Are there additional nominations? Hear none, we will accept George by acclamation. The next would be the Nursing Home Advisory Committee. You have an applicant, Deborah Gray, who is seeking appointment. What's the desire of the board?
I move that we nominate her.
Okay, we have the nomination of Ms. Gray. Are there additional nominations? Hear none, we will accept Ms. Gray by acclamation.
Mr. Chairman, I have to note, I know Commissioner Mark will be pleased, that is the first candidate we've had for the Nursing Home Advisory Board in at least 2 years since they changed the law, and I was surprised. I even said something, it caught me a little off guard, but that's good to see those spots getting full again.
Wonderful.
So. All right, Commissioners, you see there the upcoming terms expiring in March. Please take note of them. There are a number of them, and then on the next page also. Any other appointments to be made today? All right, hearing none, we will now go to the County Attorney's report. Mr. Grady.
Mr. Chairman, no report today.
Okay, thank you, sir. County Manager's report, Mr. Vite.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I have 4 subjects. Last Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, Commissioner Howard and Ms. Wargo and myself went to the NACO Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. It was a very packed agenda we put in 2 days up there. Got to attend a lot of committee meetings, and I know Commissioner Howard's going to talk to you a little bit about his opinion. We sat in on things that were very relevant today: opioid, what best practices out there, what other counties are doing across the nation, mental health, how those things are coming into play and how they're affecting groups like health department, social services. Along with meeting, one of the greatest parts of this conference is meeting the federal agencies. This year there were 75 different agencies that lined up the back of the ballroom. Commissioner Howard and Ms. Wargo and myself went to every booth and talked to them about programs that we have, brought information back. I will tell you there is a lot of material on your desk in the Commissioner's room. Please look through that. If you have questions, see Commissioner Howard or myself, and we'll walk you through what we learned. We also were able to attend lunch with Senator Tillis and Senator Budd over at the Senate building. Great to hear about the infrastructure things that they're working on at the federal level and how some of that money is coming to Eastern North Carolina. We also talked about the importance of the military, particularly with Senator Budd, invited him down here not only to visit Craven County but also to visit Cherry Point. It was already on his radar. We didn't have to say it, so he's very aware of that. Okay, moving on. Last week, Commissioner Mark and I attended the monthly Dick Center meeting, which is our contract with Onslow County and Carteret County and Craven. We were seeing about average use of the facility. Some good news that we learned in there is Wilmington has opened up part of their long-term care facility, which is called the Healing Place. They will open the second part in March, which is, I call it the medium level, where the Healing Place is long-term. This will be medium level. And what was one of the challenges with the Dick Center, their immediate detox center will open again, which was called the Anchor House, I believe. It had lost a lease and now has a new location near their hospital. So hopefully that will reduce some of the burden that New Hanover's had in that facility. Commissioner Mark and I will be hosting the director here in the next couple of weeks to come up. We'd like to have the sheriff with us and some folks from the hospital to talk about how we can better utilize that facility. Also, many of you may have received an email last week. We heard about a little bit of it in D.C. There was a second round of opioid settlements. This one was large in $600 million. That would be for all North Carolina counties and cities that signed on to the original agreement, which, if you remember, was a $750 million. So we will, Ari, I think probably in the next month or so, be coming before the board with that agreement. You and I, of course, need to look at it and do all that. But
Yeah, that's correct, Jack. There is a deadline for acceptance, which will be just after the second meeting in April. So I think we'll have it before the board at either the first or second meeting in April, depending on other scheduling.
Very good. So good news is Amber and I, and along with a lot of other folks, both inside our organization and outside our organization, have been developing a plan on the first allotment. And we were really down to the dollar, and now we're going to add almost double that amount in. So we're basically going to start over and look at all the things that we couldn't fund to make those recommendations to you this year during the budget process. We still, of course, would hope, Ari, and I didn't see this, but about an 18-year window of receiving this money, even the new funding, so we can plan that out over time. All right, last thing, and I'm glad the sheriff stayed. I asked him to last week. We were made aware, I believe it was on Tuesday, that Havelock will no longer be hosting any SROs. That was a contract that they'd had with the Board of Education for quite a while. What kind of tipped their scale for them was there was a fourth officer that the schools had offered to them. I believe that caused them to look at the whole program of what their expenses are there. And they determined at their last workshop without voting that they would not participate in the SRO program effective July 1st. So what that means, and Sheriff, if you want to come forward, you may have some questions about it, but what that means is more than likely the Board of Education is going to offer not only the 3 existing officers' contracts to the county, but also the new officer to the county. So with those expenses is the lead time, vehicle, hiring a person, uniform, gun, radio, cell phone, computer, all those good things. And Sheriff Hughes and I sat down on Friday to try to get our hands around it. I will tell you, vehicles are our biggest concern right now, vehicles and people. He's seeing an average, and I won't speak for him, but he's seeing a longer lead time on people right now. Sheriff, I'm actually going to turn it over to you so you can.
So obviously SROs are a very unique position. We've had this conversation when New Bern opted out of the SRO program. It does take quite a bit of time to recruit them. These people have to wear multiple hats. Not only are they a protector, they're a mentor, almost a guidance counselor, maybe a mother or father figure, and a law enforcement officer, protector. So they are. It's very difficult. When New Bern got out of the program, we picked up 6 SRO positions, and it took roughly 10 months to fill those positions. Now we're looking at Havelock bowing out effective July 1. And then we've got summer for the school kicks in, not to mention summer activities that a lot of our children take place in, and we're doing mentoring programs during the summer and camps. We actually need to start recruiting for these positions immediately. We are having some conversations about existing SROs in the Havelock Police Department now. However, they still have to go through the application process, and they have to be able to meet our standards. So that's not an automatic. That is encouraging that we are having those conversations, but still finding these people are going to take quite some time. And as our county manager said, vehicles is, I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. They're no longer going to be making chargers. We have put in a last request or potential order for chargers. I have no idea when they'll go into production, much less be delivered. So that's going to be another problem where ultimately I think we're going to have to buy vehicles off the lot. So, because we don't have spares. Yes, sir.
Our SROs often deal with a lot of issues, like you said. I know at my school, he's a social worker. Sometimes he's a teacher. Sometimes he's put into situations that he shouldn't be put into. Administration call him to do discipline in situations that we shouldn't be using him for. But as you're recruiting, you're going to be looking at people with these kind of degrees? Are we any kind of incentive for folks that are degreed to enter our SRO program? And really effectively work with these parents and these kids as they have to do on a regular basis?
So we do have some incentives that we can put out there. The previous board, before yourself and Commissioner Hunt came into office, approved with working closely with the county manager a bonus, if you will, for SROs, a yearly bonus, where we reclassified the SROs to a specialty position because of the nature of what they have to do. That has helped, and a certain amount goes into their check every month over the certain pay periods we have. Other than that, it's kind of a case-by-case basis where, I will put together a proposal sent up to our county manager for him and HR to look at in regards to qualifications, education, and their experience as a law enforcement officer. I also take into consider military, since I give military preference when I'm hiring. If there's additional military service, I try to build that in as well, because a lot of times you're getting someone that is well disciplined, and we need that. that appreciates our semi-military organization that we have in law enforcement. So there are some things, but, recruiting, being able to put something on paper and show this person potentially where they'll be in 5, 10 years with our organization would be beneficial. And I think, we're working toward that. We're just not quite there yet.
Thank you.
Sheriff, one thing you didn't mention is the minimum amount of starting salary for an SRO is $100,000 in the first year.
Well, the salary,
Well, salary, cars,
Okay, yes,
uniform,
sir.
everything.
When you look at every-
$100,000.
Actually, it's over. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's in excess of 100,000. It is a
I just
huge.
wanted to get that in there.
Yes, sir.
And it makes it a little bit harder.
Oh, it is.
Fruit than-
Some of it is one-time expense, not reoccurring funds, but it is. It's a very expensive venture for the county, but it's something we have to do.
Yeah. One of the problems that I find, and I've been on this board a long time, but we've got 25 schools. That's a mixture of middle schools, high schools, starting schools, and many of these people are from students are from New Bern, they're from Havelock, and these cities haven't got the regard of what's happening today in the school systems, where we have people shot in the colleges and the schools, and they're throwing everything on the county because they don't want to pay that money out. And most of their students are coming from their areas. So the county has to pick that up. And 4 years ago in New Bern, when they dropped it, I and most of the commissioners on this board said, we can't have that happen. We've got to have SROs in those schools to protect our children. New Bern and Havelock evidently don't care about that. They want to push it onto the county. And the county is probably going to take it. But gets me mad when the school systems themselves, I just noticed, has a $17 million reserve. And they should be the ones that should be responsible for some of these SROs going in this school. I'm sorry, I got off on a kick here, but it gets me mad that everything is being thrown over on the county.
Well, I will say this, and our county manager and myself have been working closely with the school board on how they can help fund these positions, and I'll let the county manager talk, but in regards to equipment and salary. So we are getting, I feel like, Jack, more partnership with the school board right now than we ever have. So he knows a little bit more about the figures that are being added, and it is a step in the right direction. It's not enough, but I think we're going in the right direction.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sheriff. I will tell you, and particularly with having a legislator today, there is some good news in this, right? So we've been stuck at this $38,000 per deputy per officer figure for as long as I can remember. And this year, the number that's coming in is 55. So we're making progress there because we have inflation too, and we have salary increases and all those things. So, coming in at 55, we'll offset some more. But Commissioner Mark, to your point, there are a lot of expenses that aren't just in the salary, particularly in year one. And that's the troubling part, is you almost got to push ahead with a lot of resources then to balance it back out at what's a normal amount moving forward and getting it on your schedule. So, you equate 4 officers, I would just tell you to think half penny on the tax rate, right? Just to give it in perspective of what that means in year one. After that, it drops substantially.
Well, what gets me so upset is New Bern and Havelock dropping these SRO offices and the school not being involved in it, and I wasn't aware that you've been working on that.
Right.
But everything can't fall on the county. The county does a lot of stuff, and we give the cities a lot of stuff, and it's about time they stepped up there and took care of these children.
I can only tell you the conversations the sheriff and I have, and we see the value in these deputies not only being in the school, but what the opportunity he has outside of the school year, whether it's summertime with camps and getting out in the communities, or quite frankly to fill in. And I'll give you a great example. Leslie's here, but when we do our tax collection each year, we need someone there, and it just happens it's in that off period for the Christmas holiday, and the sheriff and his team allow us to have a deputy there pretty much full-time when we're open. And it works great. So there's opportunity to, use those resources other ways. My point in all this today was to tell you that the sheriff and I are going to need to be on a future agenda pretty soon. We've talked on Friday. There's some things I need to see from him about cost and equipment. And there's some stuff I need to get with Ms. Parker on about HR. But we plan to put together a package because some of this needs to be started now. Only way I can describe it.
So, Jack, today this is just information for the Board of Commissioners. You don't need no action from us today.
Correct. Right. Well, the only action I would say is if you did not want to contract for the 4 additional officers, I need to know that today because we're not going to go spend a lot of working time on it.
So you need a head nod.
I need a head nod. You're going to take the 4 contracts.
All right.
We're going to go put a package together for you.
I think you see the consensus. I do want to make a statement, though. So currently, there are 3 positions that the city of Havelock is not going to fund.
Correct.
Currently.
1 high school and then 2 middle schools.
Okay. There's an extra position that was offered to them by the Board of Education.
Yes, sir.
That was going to be paid, the salary part would be paid 100%, but we would have to outfit, correct?
It was a $55,000 allotment.
Okay. But they were offering it to the Havelock Board. That's what began some of this conversation.
Yes, sir.
And this is what I'd ask this board to consider. Sheriff, we have 2 officers at New Bern High School currently. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would like to ask that whether it's you or staff would to get with the Board of Education. I'm not against putting this extra SRO at Havelock if it's needed. But personally, Commissioner Mark and I know of the activities that are going on at West Craven High School, that there is increased occurrences of disruption there. I'll just say it that way. And I don't know if I want this extra SRO to go where it's needed most. I'm not against it going to Havelock High School if that's where it's needed most. But I'd like to see the documentation personally as a commissioner to see if this actually needs to go there or does it need to go to West Craven High School. Because if they're having more occurrences there of violence and so forth, I'd rather take those funds and use it there. I'm 1 commissioner, 1 vote, but.
If I could address that. So I can tell you there is a high call volume at West Craven High School and West Craven Middle School. There is going to be a point where we are going to need to put 2 SROs in middle schools. That's where we are. I do not know the call volume at Havelock High just for the simple fact I don't have access to their call volume and what they've been responding or dealing with there. All this has come on very quickly. I agree with you, Chairman, 100%. I think we need to look at the different high schools, look at our call volume, the incidents we're having there, some of the things we're having to deal with, and then put that resource where we need it the most. I can work closely with Havelock to get their call volume at that school. I think it's important that all of y'all look at that when we decide, if y'all decide to take these 4, and where this extra one goes. There are many places it could go and be very effective, but I will tell you the school you mentioned, that there is a lot going on out there.
And I would just add to that, I think I'm not trying to speak for you, but West Craven High School, the closest municipality is Vanceburg, but they only have 1 officer on duty at all time. Is that correct, or 2?
Well, if you count the SRO in their school, they would have 2, but typically 1, and that's not all the time.
But versus Havelock, who has
Sir.
a whole police force in close proximity. So
And they have committed to continue to work closely with us on public safety issues in and around the school. We do have a good working relationship from a law enforcement standpoint, but I just like Commissioner Mark, this has come on very quickly, and it's something that we've got to deal with. I would have liked to have had a year notice. We were not afforded that.
Okay, any other comments?
Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mark.
You mentioned Vanceboro because Vanceboro is supplying SRO officers up there and we're not. Is that correct?
At Farm Life, that is
And
the
that's
one
a
school we don't.
small town, and they can do it, but New Bern and Havelock can't do it.
Correct.
All right, any additional questions? All right, County Manager, I think you've got the consensus here from this board today to proceed forward and at necessary time to bring it back to us.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what we'll shoot for, and just the last thing on my notes here is, we do have a work session scheduled for March the 20th, after your commissioner meeting. It'll be 1 month from today. This will more than likely be one of the decision points there. We also, as Representative mentioned earlier, we'll have Senator Perry and Representative Tyson here. And we'll also, one of the issues I've heard the most in the last couple of months is private roads to public roads. How do roads get turned over to DOT? So we're going to have a couple of experts here on March 20th to talk about that process, go through how it works. And I know I saw Don Bumgarner here, but Don and his team will be here as well for that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. This actually goes back to the sheriff. If the Chargers are going out of production, so they are coming to the end of their service life, what will be the vehicle that law enforcement agencies will replace them with?
That was the part of the conversation the county manager and I had. Right now, we're not exactly sure. They're moving away from the Charger altogether. It's going to be replaced with some type of all-wheel drive SUV. We haven't seen it yet. It's my guess it's going to be somewhere between a Charger and a Durango, or maybe the Durango. We talked about Durangos. We talked about pickups. In some cases now we're looking at putting some just regular vehicles into our fleet and trying to put what Chargers I have left on the road. So we're not really sure yet. And then we're looking at, the biggest bang for the buck the Charger has been. Why they choose to get rid of it, I'm not sure. But and I'm not even sure with I think the 15 we tried to order that we'll get any of them. We just don't know. So it's going to be interesting in how we all deal with it, because I think it's going to affect many departments throughout the county in regards to what type of vehicles they can get to.
Mr. Chairman, I'm available for any other
Any
questions.
questions for the county manager this morning?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, it's time for commissioners' report. Commissioner Smith, do you have anything this morning?
I would like to share, as you know, this is Black History Month, and I had the opportunity to participate in the Black History Parade, sponsored by Vision Forward, and I had a great day, beautiful day. It was a lovely parade, and our sheriff, although Craven County Sheriff's Department wasn't in charge, he was there for my support, came up and made sure that everything that I needed was taken care of, and I appreciate that. And also, Lauren was there and snapped a few pictures of me, and she told me she would support me, and she was there. I happened to be the Grand Marshal of the parade on Saturday. That was exciting. I was reluctant, but it was very exciting, wonderful parade.
Well, congratulations on that. That's great. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Hunt.
Oh, Chairman, Commissioners, I just wanted to mention that I've completed my first 60 days representing District 5 in all of Craven County. These first 2 months have been a whirlwind of information, people, places, classes, and meetings. So I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to everyone in this room and to everyone all over Craven County that have shared their valuable time with me to get me up to speed on their department's needs before the budget time, and also to help me understand how all these departments works together for the betterment of Craven County. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark.
I will continue. I've been holding town hall meetings in some of the precincts, and I will continue doing that. I guess I said enough today because I got very upset on this problem with the SROs, which I think is a necessity in this day and age of the problems that we're having in the schools and the colleges. And I just can't see it taken lightly. And I think that the cities, and the large cities in New Bern, should be New Bern and Havelock should be responsible for some of this stuff. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mitchell.
3 things, Mr. Chair. Thank you. One, I will be going the first week of March to the Association of Defense Communities Conference in Washington, D.C. I am representing NCMAC and Allied for Cherry Point. I'm looking forward to bringing some useful information back to the commissioners on that one. The second annual North Carolina Defense Summit is being planned for this fall. You may remember it was held September last year. It's the first regional defense summit that we have had on the East Coast, first in North Carolina. We're looking at expanding it for 2 days. We want to make this ultimately a 2 or 3 day event to put the spotlight on the second largest economic sector in North Carolina. And the third one is Allies for Cherry Point is in the process of transitioning to a full 501c3. Paperwork is filed with the IRS. We hope we will hear something back by late spring, but this is a long and complicated process. The new board is fully stood up. We have representatives from all major industries in eastern North Carolina, plus the elected representatives, and the board has been fleshed out with a lot of the younger emerging leaders who have a stake in this economy, who are interested in the military, where it is exciting to see the energy and enthusiasm that they are bringing to it. We are standing up a fundraising arm, even as we speak, and we will use the monies raised for that to benefit active duty, their families, veterans, and their families in this area on a very broad community-wide focus. So we will still continue to lobby at the state and the federal level for our military communities in this area, but ACT's scope of responsibility is substantially expanding.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Howard.
My report, I'm going to start off with our attendance at NACO in Washington, D.C. from February 11th through 14th. I'm pleased to report that our meetings with Senator Ted Budd and his Chief of Staff, Tucker Knott, were highly productive. We had the opportunity to discuss our county's needs and priorities with his Chief of Staff specifically and to advocate for the support we require from the federal government. Our discussions were well received, and we are confident that we have laid some groundwork for future collaboration and support. During the conference, we also learned more about the REPI program through the Department of Defense. Jack talked to Andy Porth with REPI. This could potentially produce millions in environmental assistance in areas surrounding the base, which I thought I'm going to give 100% of the credit to Jack for that. He really put an emphasis on meeting with a lot of these federal agencies. How many were there total?
I think it was 75.
75, and stopping at every single table, getting material, and talking to those folks. I realize at some of these conferences, people have different priorities. For us, it was 100% work. We did see some sites too, but other than that, it was 100% work. Talking to members of different federal departments was informational and productive. I was able to pass information to Commissioner Hunt regarding some issues close to her heart. Jack also collected a bunch of information for all the commissioners. We also had the opportunity to work with NACO's lobbyists and others to find money promised in the omnibus bill in regards to the Tech Bridge project that County Manager Jack Veit and others are working on, certainly making connections to further ensure the $500,000 promised is moved forward. In conclusion, I want to emphasize the importance of attending NACO conference and leveraging the opportunities it presents. Our attendance has allowed us to build relationships and engage with other elected officials in the U.S., and we have made significant progress in advancing our county's needs and priorities. I'm grateful for the opportunities to have represented our county at this conference, and I look forward to continuing to work together towards our shared goals. Notable workshops, the 2023 Farm Bill Reauthorization Workshop, learned a lot there. Opioids and Addiction Workshop, which Jack insisted I go to, and I was happy I did, and one of the other addiction workshops that dealt more with like alcoholism and other things. North Carolina Caucus was informational. North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, the Republican Caucus, which I attended my first night for NACO, and had various conversations and built some relationships by working with various commissioners, judges, selectmen, and local legislators from around the country. So for me, it was informative. I learned a lot of things. Even like, Craven County may not be on board with Medicaid expansion. In our district, that's been a controversial issue. But since it seems inevitable at this point, we did learn some things, like I believe once that's implemented, a lot of our issues with medical costs for prisoners in the jail will be covered under Medicaid expansion, which would be a cost-saving mechanism once that's implemented. Whether you're for or against, I will point out that Representative Cairns, did I say it right? Good. No, I didn't. I did, okay, good. Voted no on that, supporting the constituents of both Craven and Carteret County, but it is, as it does get implemented, though, it is important to know that there will be some benefits for us here in the county. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Can I revisit the REPI issue, because I checked with ACT's Military Support Committee on that one. Rhonda Murray, who is the community Cherry Point liaison, is the point of contact for applying for the REPI funds. Cherry Point does apply every year, has applied every year for a couple of decades. Whatever is available that we can qualify for, we normally get. So it is a smoothly working program that's already in existence. Obviously, if more becomes available that can assist our Cherry Point, we will apply for it, but that is in process and working pretty well.
Good, thank you. Vice Chair Booker.
I have nothing.
Okay. I have nothing today. Only thing I do want to say, Representative, again, we appreciate you coming, staying for our meeting. Again, we look forward to working with you anyway where we can be assistance to you, our staff. Please give us a call, and we will definitely be calling on you. But we want you to know you can contact us too. All right, hearing nothing else from commissioners, we do have a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A5 to discuss personnel items. Anything to add on that, Mr. County Attorney?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to take about a 5-minute recess to get this room in order.